Hey everybody, welcome to the Connection Project with Sally here. And I'm here today for a solo episode. And what do I want to talk about? It's always like a thought in my head. What am I going to talk about today? What do I want to share with my audience? Who's listening? All the things, right? But I had a couple of thoughts, but really what I wanted to bring to you today is something that I've was brought to me before when I did a training. It's called the drama triangle, Cartman's drama triangle, and it's been reintroduced to me a few times, and it was reintroduced to me as the victim triangle, um, which is was built upon a psychotherapist and founder of heart-centered hypnotherapy, Diane Zimmerhoff, and she, I think, renamed it, don't quote me, as the victim triangle. And so I'm doing some new training, of course, always training in something new, and I'm training in some hypno breath work. All know that I'm a lover of breath work. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this victim drama triangle, whatever you want to call it, because it is so relevant to all of us that I really felt like I wanted to bring it here to you today, and give you kind of the abridged version and see like what just lands for you on this, because I want to ask you as the audience to get curious. And when I talk about these different aspects of this triangle, where you kind of feel it in your body. Like when I talk about the victim or the persecutor or the rescuer, what comes up for you when you listen to that? And that's part of the somatic practices, the practices that we do, getting into the body, the soma, getting into our body and where we're feeling things. So logically, I'm going to be talking to you about these things. But while I'm talking to you about these things, I'm going to just ask you again to get curious and notice when I mention these different aspects of this triangle, where you feel it. If anything comes up for you, maybe even journaling on it, because we all have pieces of this within us. I would love to hear from someone that doesn't have any of this. Um, and I've done a lot of work, but I still have pieces of this come up. And so what happens when these pieces come up is it's an old piece of us, um, that's triggering this in us. So that being said, I just wanted to convo about that because it is, I really want you to feel into this this week and notice what comes up for you and what you feel when I talk about these things. So the victim triangle, the drama triangle consists of three different roles that we play in our life. And for me, this resonated so much when I heard it the first time, and it resonated again when I was reintroduced to it. And I'm actually going to do I think a free workshop on this because I think it's so profound, and everybody doesn't know about it. So it's great. It's a great for self-awareness. So what are the three different roles that we play? Victim, persecutor, and rescuer, right? They're each a side of the triangle. And the paradox that is underneath all of this, all of these roles actually is the victim, right? How many times have we victimized ourselves, right? We victimize ourselves because it's just easier, it's more comfortable to be in that role sometimes of like, oh God, nobody helps me, I can't get anybody help, no one respects me, all the things that might come up for us. And then what happens is underneath that, we're in that victim role, and then the other roles come out. The persecutor, you never help me. You're never attentive to me. You don't do what I need you to do. You don't do the dishes when I ask you to do them, and how I need you to do them, and all the things. And then we can switch back to the rescuer where we feel bad after the persecuting, that we're like, oh, let me help you with that. And so I don't know if that's resonating for anybody, but I can bounce between those three things in probably a 3-minute argument. I can be the victim, I can turn into the persecutor, and then I can turn into the rescuer, all in one little disagreement. That even like how that shows up in my body is like, oh God, that's a lot, right? It's heavy. So what happens? We can get sucked into this in like literally the blink of an eye if we're not aware. And so I don't expect anybody to listen to this podcast today and then just never be in that mode again. That's not, we shouldn't try to do things that are not achievable in an instant. That's the world we live in, that we want everything to be fixed right away. This is about self-awareness. This is about checking in with yourself, noticing, getting curious with how you're showing up in the world and in your relationships, at work, in your partnerships. Because when you're bringing the victim triangle, the drama triangle into your relationships, it's just not productive. It's not productive. And so I just want to make you aware about these things and just get curious and think how you feel about it. And the good news is that we can step out of these roles. We can learn to step out of these victim roles and we can step into a more empowered self. We all have that empowered self within us. Sometimes she or he is just difficult to access, or we haven't really thought about, for me, her in a while, right? Or him in a while. Like, who is my empowered self? So, kind of tapping into that is always important. And how do we even acknowledge any of this or we find any of this? A lot of it stems back to some inner child healing that we may do that helps us with this, right? Helps us access that, for me, that inner Sally, that young, maybe 6-year-old Sally that didn't feel good enough. And then victimizes herself because it keeps me safer, right? So we'll talk more about that towards the end, but I just wanted to um, bring that up. And the more we are self-aware and the more we do practices and we learn about ourselves and what makes us tick, um, the easier it becomes, right? It's like working out at the gym and then we get muscle memory and then the workout isn't as hard and then we level up. So then that workout gets harder and then we struggle a little bit again, but then that muscle memory starts to come back and we start to get stronger. It's no different with emotional healing, with this type of self-development work, really creating a connection with our emotions, finding emotional maturity, finding out how we are made up, how we tick, what works for us, what doesn't work for us, what triggers us, what doesn't trigger us. But getting to that point sometimes is hard. So I just wanted to take you through a little like scenario of what these victim, persecutor, rescuers look like and see if they just hit a button with you, hit a wound in you, hit a little trigger in you. Um, And these are often subconscious beliefs. They are not something we always just think about. They can be deep subconsciously um, beliefs, emotions, behaviors in these roles. So the victim thinking and behavior can be things like poor me, someone just save me. I've said that. I don't know if who said that. Like I've said that. Like I'm tired of taking care of people all the time. Even though I'm in a service industry, I was a nurse or I am a nurse, and now I work in healing modalities. But and I'm a coach, but I've said that so many times. I'm sick of taking care of people. Why can't someone just take care of me? The interesting thing is I'm not always able to receive that care or that help, right? So just put that on the side in the parking lot for a moment because we'll go back to that. But yeah, I don't always know how to receive. As victims and rescuers and healers, we don't always know how to receive. As empaths, we don't know always how to receive. Um, Other victim thinking behaviors is everything always happens to me. Bad things always happen to me. Everyone is against me. Nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. People disrespect me. Oh God. If you talk to my husband, I used to say that all the time. I feel so disrespected. Um, People are out to get me, hurt me, tear me down. Nobody cares about me. I'm nothing. I'm nobody. I'm invisible. People don't see me. People don't hear me. Um, I can't do anything for myself. People walk all over me. Oh, that feels heavy just saying that, right? And so, how do the victim feel when we're in that victim mode, that constricted victim mode in our body? We can feel it, even saying it. I feel constricted, I feel heavy. And so, the victim sometimes feels powerless, helpless, hopeless, oppressed, ashamed, inferior. They may not want to even ask for anything because they feel ashamed that they even feel that way. Why should I feel that way? Mary Jane next door doesn't feel that way. But the reality is, you don't really know how Mary Jane feels, right? So, this is how the victim, when we're in that victim mode, this is how we feel. We feel like we can never catch a break. Nothing is ever going to go right. So, why even think that something is going to go right? Why even be disappointed with that, right? That's a feeling I've had before. Why reach for that goal if I'm only going to be disappointed? Right? Let me just save myself that stress and I'll just stay safe and heavy and constricted in this victim mode. So that's the victim. Just some examples of that. And then we go into the rescuer thinking and the behavior. Poor you. Forget poor me, poor you. Oh my God, I want to help you. I want to save you. Let me save you. You may be resistant to me saving you, but let me save you. Let me help you. Let me enable you. Let me let me put your needs before mine. I don't have any needs. How many times, especially moms out there, you may not want to hear this, right? But I want you to just pause for a second. We women and moms, we put everybody's needs up before ours, right? We do. It's been programmed in us. That's the way it's supposed to be. Um, but newsflash, you have needs. Whether you're a mom, whether you're a wife, whether you're not a mom and you're a dog mom or you're a cat mom, whatever it is, right? You're a woman, and men have needs too, but I'm just speaking to the women right now specifically about this, is through the histories, we were supposed to put people's needs first, right? Our husbands, our partners, our kids. And so you do have needs. I want you to hear that you have needs. And if you don't take care of your needs, energetically, everyone else will suffer. We may not think that, but that's what's going to happen. People will suffer around you. Your family will suffer because you're putting everybody first and you're not filling your cup. You're not putting your oxygen on first. And it may sound silly or like that's what people always say, but it's true. It's true. And I can speak firsthand to this. Um, Other things with rescuers, your needs are more important. I come last. The martyr syndrome, like, oh, I don't need anything. Like, I don't know if this resonates, maybe. I don't need anything. I've got it. I've got it. I'm fine. I'm fine. The best thing I ever saw was shout out Juliana Hardy, Move, Breathe, and Live. And she does a retreat every year. I think actually has a retreat coming. She does have a retreat coming up in October um, in upstate New York. So if you have an interest in that, reach out because I can give you info on that from her. But she had a t-shirt made for one of her retreats and it says, I'm fine with a knife and a bloody stain on the shirt. Because how many of us have that syndrome, that martyr syndrome? I'm fine. I don't need anything. I've had that. I've had that. And I really am dying for someone to help me. I'm dying for someone to reach out, but I don't know how to even accept that when I'm in my rescuer mode. It's just all about the other person. I'm only important. My worth is all based around me saving someone else. I'm only okay if you're okay. So how many times in partnerships or with our kids, like if they're okay, then I'm okay. Right? And sometimes when that happens, we're enabling someone to not be okay. We're like giving them permission to not work through their stuff. Like we're going to fix it for them all the time. We're fixers, rescuers, right? And it's not healthy. It's not healthy. And your mood and your feelings determine my mood. How many of us have experienced that? Me, I've experienced that. Like if someone's energy is off and their mood is bad, then I let it affect me. And then I'm resentful and I'm mad and I don't take care of my own energy. It's all based on someone else's energy. The rescuer is a classic codependent. So I would have never thought of myself as codependent. Never, never, never. Um, but yeah, when I'm in this rescuer mode, I can definitely be very codependent. I want to please, I want to rescue, I want to save, I want that person to be happy. And if they're happy, then I'm happy. And then I'm not having my own needs met. And so how does the rescuer feel? Guilty when not helping, guilty when not jumping in to just take over and save everybody, resentful because they're always helping others when they're getting nothing in return because no one agreed to give them anything in return. We're just stepping in. We just step in and rescue. Sometimes we're not even asked. And then we're resentful because no one is doing it for us. Well, we didn't ask anybody to do it for us. And they didn't agree when we rescued them for them to pay us back, right? We just think that they're supposed to do that. And I don't know if this is clicking for anybody, but I shamefully can admit that I can relate to all of these. And so if you're in the healing arts, you coaches out there, nurses, anyone in the healing industry, yeah, we go into these service industries, and there's a piece of us that does this. Um, how else do rescuer feels? They feel depleted. They feel exhausted from giving so much of themselves, not maintaining their energy, not like that's a whole nother thing, how we maintain our energy, but not maintaining our energy and just allowing giving to depletion, absolutely giving it to depletion. So, I would like to really just have you understand that that's not helpful, not healthy. And so the last part of the drama or victim triangle is the persecutor. And so just going over a little bit of persecutor thinking and behavior and just see if this ticks any boxes for you or resonates, or if you feel anything in your body when I talk about this. And when I say talk about like how you feel in your body, do you get any tightness in your chest? Does your throat close up? Do you get like agitated? Because sometimes if something really resonates with us, we'll feel it in our body before even in our mind. So again, back to that somatic piece, really getting in touch with how we feel. Persecutor thinking and behavior, it's all his fault. All his fault, all her fault. It's my husband. If he would just do this, this, and this, things would be better. If my kid would just do this, this, and this, if my boss at work would just do this, this, and this, it would be better. I'm not always taking like full responsibility for where I come and show up in the relationship or at my job or my business or wherever with my friends, right? So we can have that persecutor, like it's all their fault. If they would just fix these things, I would be fixed, right? Does that resonate? If they would just fix these things, then I would be fixed. But we're giving our power away to them. They need to fix their things for us to be fixed. It doesn't work that way. I have to blame someone or something. Always somebody to blame. Do we all know that person? Like there's always somebody to blame. If I'm late getting somewhere, I'll use this example because I have been working on this forever. I tend to do the last thing, like one more thing before I leave the house. I'm always add one more thing. If I didn't do that one more thing, I would always be early or on time. But I have this weird mental block about doing one more thing, getting one more thing done. Let me empty the dishwasher before I leave. Let me fill the dishwasher before I leave. Let me throw the laundry in before I leave. And then I'm rushing. And I'm rushing. I'm in fight or flight. I'm anxious. And then I'm driving somewhere and I'm like, God, if that car wasn't going so slow, I would have been on time. No, no, if I left on time, I would have been on time. I wouldn't be rushing. I wouldn't be anxious. I would be like totally chill in the car, going to my destination instead of blaming the car in front of me for going slow, right? We know there may always be a car in front of us that goes slow, so I should not be doing that last thing. That's totally on me, but that's hard to look at sometimes. So blaming other people. Um, Sometimes if we're in a relationship or friendship or whatever, like subconsciously, I'll hurt you before you're going to hurt me. So if you've been in this, you have this inner wounded inner child and you had to survive. You had to survive. You had to create this barrier to survive. Sometimes we can react like this in our adult life. Like, I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me. So if my partner, if I think he's going to say something bad, even before he doesn't do it, I'm going to hurt him first. Just happens, right? I don't even have to think about it. I just do it. It's in me. And so that's what happens in this persecutor role. I will leave you before you can leave me. I will control you. I will control the whole situation. Everybody has to follow exactly the way I want to do it because I'm in control. I will criticize you. I will lash out. I will be angry. I will talk down to you. I'm authoritative, dominating, dogmatic. I'm superior. I will oppress you before you can oppress me. And I will victimize you before you victimize me. And that sounds so awful, right? That sounds so awful. And what's really hard to do is look at yourself and think, does that show up in me? Do I do that? And sometimes that is a hard pill to swallow because I do it. I mean, I'm much better. I'm much more self-aware, but that persecutor can sometimes still come out. But when I say these things, even for me, I get a little tightness in my chest because I'm like, oh, that's rough. Like, that's rough. But I don't feel shame about it. I feel like I'm aware that I do that. And so where do I feel that and how do I work through that? And that's part of like what you learn when you're doing self-awareness and doing inner child work, but awareness is the first key. Self-awareness and then taking responsibility for yourself, key. So how does the persecutor feel? They're the person that gets angry. They're rageful. They feel slighted. They're always pissed off. They're bitter. They know better. They know how to fix the problem. They're not really big on collaboration. They know how to fix the problem. And everybody just needs to listen to them and follow their directions, and everything will be perfect. Does anybody out there know that person? Right? I know some of those people, and sometimes I've been that person. Whew, those are a lot, right? But this happens. This is a real thing. And I'm not telling you this to shame you. I'm telling you this to just get self-aware. Like, what does this bring up for you? And remember, underneath all three of those is actually a victim. The victim is just stuck in that oppressed, victimized role. And who is in that role? It's usually a scared little child, a scared little version of you or that person that didn't have needs met to make them feel this way. And now I know what some people are thinking. I don't have a scared inner child. Why go backwards? I don't need to discuss that. I had a great upbringing. My parents were amazing. But I've done a lot of this work on myself and on clients. I've been in a lot of classrooms and Zoom rooms with people doing healing work. And you don't have to have this really, really, really traumatic event to have maybe a need not met as a child. And then when we don't have a specific need that we have met, then what happens as an adult, these things keep showing up. And sometimes we are a real scared little kid. We didn't have our needs met the way that we needed our needs met, not the way society thinks we needed our needs met, the way we needed our needs met, because we're all individuals as humans. And when then we set up barriers or oh, sorry, barriers or walls to protect ourselves. And that's what shows up in adulthood. And we can talk more about that. So the victim is stuck and oppressed, maybe a little child. The rescuer is trying to rescue everyone else because underneath he or she is actually the victim, who is often the scared little child who needs to be rescued. So if we can follow that, how does that land? Like we're trying to rescue ourselves, right? The rescuer, if you're in rescue mode, always healing, helping, saving everybody. I don't need to sleep. I can do the extra shift for the nurses. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can help, right? Always the one volunteering. I'm not saying that's bad, but if it's at your own detriment, it's not great. It's not healthy, right? So we're trying to rescue other people, but in turn, we're a lot of times trying to rescue ourselves, right? Because we weren't rescued. So it's just easier and safer in our body to do it for other people. And the persecutor is really afraid. They're afraid of appearing weak, or they're afraid of showing up as that victim that maybe they once were, or that they felt when they were small, when they were younger. And so they try to hide that victimhood. They're not going to show anybody that. And so they are going to be attacking before they're attacked. They're just going to do it. I've had this show up. Yeah, I have a bunch of examples of this that I can share. I'll share this personal example of this. I didn't really see this in myself, but when you start to do inner child and healing work, breath work, somatic work, things that are bringing things out that you've really buried pretty deep in your subconscious. So I was going away and I was doing a lot of trips. I was facilitating breathwork at retreats. I was doing a lot of different things and I was traveling alone. not with my husband. And I would come home and he was 100% supportive, loving, chatting during the trip. So supportive. And I would come home and I had missed him. I was so excited to see him. And I would walk through the door and I would kind of start in. It's kind of almost like embarrassing to say, but it's true. This is like really what happened. I would walk in the door and I would start in, why isn't this done? Why isn't this done? What happened here? I would have like this feeling in my body that would be like just angry as soon as I walked through the door. It was so weird how it happened. And the first few times it happened, I didn't really understand it, or I was just like, I kind of blamed him because I was in persecution mode. And this happened, I think after 3 trips. So we talked about it. I couldn't figure it out. I knew something was wrong. And I was at a retreat. I was at an advanced breathwork retreat, and I had a really rough week that week, a lot of introspective work. It was really hard on me. And at the end of the retreat, I did a breathwork session and I released a lot of stuff. And at the end of the breathwork session, I almost had like this cloak of shame come over me. I had done a lot of female embodiment work at the breathwork session and at the week, a lot of female embodiment, which I'm uncomfortable with. And I've been working through that process. So I was leaving the retreat. I spoke to one of the coaches there, one of the energy healers, kind of talked through what I was feeling. And it was kind of an exhausting week for me, although it was amazing. I had a lot of breakthroughs. And I was going into my car and I was putting my suitcase in the back of the car. And as I put my suitcase in the back of the car, and you can believe this or not believe this, you could think it's woo or not woo, but this truly happened. And I had this vision of my mom, who has passed now. It was a bit controlling. And she never wanted us to go anywhere or do anything without the family or without her. No, as a like young adult teenager, like never have a birthday without the family, like not go with your friends, not go with anybody. It always kind of revolved around her. Um, and that's how I grew up. So I was always shamed or felt guilty if I wanted to do anything for myself. And so I realized that every time I was traveling, even though I wasn't thinking about that, like I didn't think about that. But when I was traveling, I would automatically come home. And even though my husband was not doing that to me, he was not shaming me, making me feel guilty. So 100% supportive. Subconsciously, my body remembered that. So I automatically would be in fight or flight and want to attack him before he could attack me. And it wasn't him, it was my mom. So these were old memories, not even something I was thinking of. And it was coming up in my body subconsciously and coming out in my day to day. So that may sound so confusing, but I'm telling you, I was in this persecutor mode without even wanting to be in that mode. And, I released something in that week that showed me this because it's crazy how this work happens. And so now I'm aware that when I travel alone, that I have to be aware of that. And I've worked through that part of me, but I still have a little awareness of it. So I have to be really careful when I come home that I don't go into that persecutor mode. And I've cleared energetically a lot of that stuff with my mom, but there is still some stuff there. So that's how it shows up. When people say, oh, how is that going to show up in my day to day? That's old. Well, it shows up because that was a big problem for us. And if I didn't figure that out, if I didn't like have that awareness finally, through the somatic healing work, then I would have never recognized that. And that could have just went on and on and on. So that's my example. I'll stop with that. But that's an example. And I don't want to feel weak. And so if I think someone is going to attack me, I am going to attack them first. And we can be defensive, we can be argumentative, and we all know those people, or we all are those people sometimes. So just remembering all of these are unconscious, or at least at first. Like for me, that was an unconscious thing that was going on with me. And so underneath all of these roles lies the perceived lack of power, right? We feel powerless. And again, this perceived lack of power, this powerlessness goes back to our inner child, to some moment or some moments in time when we were really, really young and we felt powerless. right? So we go into those. And this is why we still need to view these roles or patterns with more compassion and love. So we don't want to suppress these moments. We want to love them. We want to love on that inner child or that part of me that is a shadow side that is not easy to deal with, right? Because I'm not by far not perfect. And I need to love on those pieces of me and my inner child that need that love and compassion and kindness. I don't need to shame her anymore. I don't need to shame her. So we're going to talk a little bit here in the rescuer role because those of us in these helping fields a lot of times do this. And so the rescuers often go into helping and healing fields because they are often either consciously or subconsciously seeking help. We want to help ourselves, right? So I've experienced this because I went on this healing journey and then I wanted to help myself. I wanted to feel better. I wanted to be more empowered, to connect with my empowered self instead of my victim self. But to remember that driving need to help others stems from old stuff. So helping others is noble and wonderful. However, it can be unhealthy and it can be imbalanced. And so the first part of self-awareness and radical responsibility to be aware of these things is really important. It's really important. So the energy behind all of this is compulsive a bit. It drives us to rescue or save others at the detriment of oneself. And there's a difference between rescuing people and helping people. When we're helping them and enabling them, like in coaching, I'm helping people, I'm enabling them to have tools to help themselves, right? To get some self-awareness. I'm not doing it for them, right? I don't want to do it for them. And so that's how we dive into the victim triangle. So the more we heal individually, the more we're able to recognize these things and the more we're able to help others without hurting ourselves. So essentially, if you're blaming anyone or anything outside of you or your situation, feelings, emotions, or life, you can ensure that you're in the victim triangle. And so I'm going to challenge you in the next week to go out there and just notice, like when you're having a conversation or you're mad about something, notice what's happening. Notice what's coming up for you. Notice where you are in that victim triangle. Are you the victim? Are the persecutor? Are you rescuing someone right now? Right? Okay. And so the victim triangle plays out in our ego, really has a lot to do with our ego. And so when we start to recognize that, like I said, it's really empowering. But again, we must have compassion for these parts, even the parts, even my persecutor parts, I have to have compassion for them because they help me survive in my early days. Like they help me survive. They help me be successful. Weirdly, but they do, right? They're my protectors. So I have to show them when they show up, I have to be compassionate and kind and loving to them. So how do we connect with our empowered self? So there's a space completely outside of this triangle, and that is when we access our empowered self or our higher self, our soul, whatever resonates with you that you want to call it. And we notice when we're in a trigger or we're starting to be in that victim triangle, we take responsibility to go within to see exactly what is arising, what's bothering me, what's coming up for me, what sensations are coming up in my body. And then learning steps to clear, heal, transmute that energy. And that might, again, sound woo, but there's so much data behind all of this now. So this is not just woo, this is real stuff. And it really happens. I see it with clients. I've seen it with myself. It's amazing when it happens. So we can take these opportunities to be self-aware. Learning to step out of the automatic reactions, begin to respond from a more grounded place. So grounding exercises, taking care of yourself, self-care, journaling, being grounded, getting outside, all those grounding practices that help you, finding what helps you. Doing the internal work, right? We don't want to spend money or time or I'm too busy to do our own work, but clearing those wounds and healing them can change your whole life. Taking responsibility for our own energy, our actions, our behaviors, our emotions, our patterns, our responses. Oof, that is a hard one to swallow. I am responsible for me. Yeah, I'm responsible for me. I'm responsible for what shows up in around my energy. I'm responsible how I show up. Setting healthy boundaries energy, space, time with others. Who here has trouble with boundaries? Sometimes I can ruminate about something and obsess about something when really all I needed to do was set a boundary without guilt or shame. Like, this is what I'm needing right now, and this is what, how I'm going to need you to show up. And if that person can't do that, or they can't show up that way, that's really on them, right? Like, we have to set what's going to feel good for us. But first we have to access what feels good for us, because sometimes in the beginning of these journeys, we don't even know what feels good, right? Because it can be very confusing. So when I talk about all these things, I talk about them in micro changes. So you don't have to do all of this overnight. Speaking your truth in a respectful way, whether or not others can hear, accept, receive what is said, is so important. How many of us have trouble speaking our truth? We don't want to offend people. We don't want them to not like us, right? So learning to open our throat chakra, speak our truth, have our voice be heard. So many of my clients, the biggest thread that I see is people do not feel seen and heard. That was an issue for me, and it's an issue for so many of my clients. They don't feel seen and heard. And ask for what you need. This came up in a session today, right? With somebody. Ask for what you need, and then learn how to be able to receive it. So many times we don't ask for what we need. I, again, was guilty of this. I just wanted people to know what I needed. Like, how do they not know? It's so simple. How do they not know? How does my husband not know what I need? Well, I don't know. He doesn't read my mind, right? Like, I don't read his mind. And I don't want him to read my mind. I don't want him to know every single thought I have. I don't want to know every single thought he has, right? I don't know. That's not really healthy. So I need to ask for what I need. And then need to be able to receive what somebody is giving me. How many times has someone offered to help you and you say, oh no, I got it. I got it. And then you're resentful later because no one helps you, right? So asking for what we need. So that was a lot, right? That was a lot of information on this victim triangle or drama triangle. It's called two different things. People have done a little different work with it, but you can Google it. It's all there. I think it's really an important self-awareness tool because, God, I couldn't believe how much I could see myself. We usually have a strong suit in one of them, maybe being the victim or maybe being the persecutor. But the victim is underneath all of them. So I think I'm going to ask you to get curious on, like, where do you see yourself in this? And how can you be aware enough to want to step out of it and start to work on these areas, right? This isn't about shame or judgment or I'm a bad person. It's about, holy crap, I built all this up and I can bing in between this triangle for the rest of my life. Or I can take responsibility for myself and my emotions and learn how to connect with my emotions on a level that's deep and vulnerable. And sometimes looking at ourselves is really, really freaking hard, right? Maybe mistakes we made. But remembering we've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes, but we only knew what we knew at that point, right? So now I'm asking you to get curious on, like, where you want to go in life and how you want to step out of this triangle and start working on yourself, right? And to me, the somatic practices, the breath work, the inner child work, hypno breath work, getting in touch with your body and your emotions, emotional connection, emotional mastery, some would call it, right? Learning about our emotions and how to process them, that gets us out of this triangle. And so I'm going to leave you with that, because I gave you a lot of info on this today. But there are so many places for you to empower yourself and step out of this triangle, right? Whether it's a coach, right? This is what I do for a living. This is what I do. I help people step out of that triangle. but there are so many other people helping people too. So many amazing people or podcasts or books. I'll share some books on the show notes. Um, I'll share ways to work with me on this inner child healing work that really gets us in touch with why we're stuck in this triangle. Um, or just check out a breathwork session, right? Just check it out. It could be local, could be online with me, it could be with anyone, right? This is really about you and you taking a look at yourself and being self-aware and how is your life going and where is it going? And are you stuck? And what does that look like? And are you stuck in the triangle? Because that triangle just tosses us around, but we can stop it. We can stop the tossing around and we can step outside, but it's our choice. So, all right, enough with that. So, I love all of you. Thank you for listening. I hope that something here resonated with you. Whatever resonates with you, I encourage you to take it with you. If it doesn't resonate, that's fine. You leave that part behind. Everything I say doesn't have to resonate with everybody. But I just love to share these thoughts because everybody doesn't know about all this stuff. And I'm gonna give a little pitch. I have a retreat with my partner Christy in Costa Rica on October 13th. We have 2 spots left for that. I have been calling in the last 2 women. It's a very intimate group, only 8 women. We are going to be moments from the beach. We are going to be doing movement, yoga, somatic practices, inner child healing, all this stuff I'm talking about getting out of this drama triangle. We're going to be working through some of that and manifesting, teaching you how to desire what you want in your life and really set intention on it, right? We set so much intention on the negative part. We need to set on what we want, where we're going. Point the arrow to where we're going in our life. And so we're going to be doing all that 5 nights in Costa Rica. 6 of the most amazing women have signed up so far. We're looking for the last 2. The last 2. And special little bonus discount if you hear about that on the podcast and send me information saying you heard about the retreat on the podcast, the Connection Project, because this retreat is all about connection and manifesting. And it's going to be beautiful. So yeah, who are those last 2 ladies wanting to come in and really take control of their life, right? All right, everybody, love to you all and have a beautiful day. I'll see you next week.